fertilizer markets are under increasing strain with tightening phosphate supply, ongoing geopolitical disruptions, and new policy moves adding to the uncertainty, all while demand looks increasingly fragile heading into the summer. I'm Johanna Bota, and to walk us through it all, I'm joined today by Josh Linville, VP of Fertilizer at StoneX. Good to have you back, Josh. Let's start with the global phosphate markets, which continue to struggle and have actually worsened this week. What's behind this pressure?
Yeah, so the phosphate world, as little has been talked about out there about the marketplace, and that makes sense, right? The price is already high. We are already expecting demand destruction, but it continues to get worse. Again, important to note, 5 countries control most of the global phosphate marketplace. China, who's typically the leader, isn't exporting. This is nothing new. This has been the case for all of 2026. We continue to expect this at least through August, if not longer, if the government says so. Saudi Arabia continues to work their butts off to trickle tons through the West Coast facilities while the strait is closed, but that's far, far less tons than what is normal. And then we were already dealing with the US manufacturing that's been fairly low versus historic norms. Unfortunately, Mosaic is the first one to show the hit. Unfortunately, Mosaic is now coming out and saying, listen, we need to revise our production rates for 2026, our estimates, our goals lower. These inputs are killing us. The sulfur prices are incredibly high price, and hydrous is incredibly high price. And so folks are sitting there looking at the marketplace and saying, these prices are already outrageously high. There's no way they can justify a higher price. But like we've been telling everybody, if the market doesn't go higher, we're going to run the risk of shutting down even more production because these manufacturers, the input costs are so high, it surpasses what the market is today. And that's what we've continued to sit there and say. As ridiculous as it sounds, we may have already seen the lowest price of phosphate for 2026, barring substantial changes in the global market. So we've got a situation, 3 of the world's biggest manufacturers, biggest exporters, has some form of problem as far as supply. And then don't forget, you've also got Morocco and Russia who are dealing with, again, the high and tight supply of sulfur, the high and tight supply of anhydrous. They're also dealing with these very high input costs. So phosphate, as bad as it looks, and nobody wants to look at this thing right now because it's May, it's early May. There's a long time until the next application season. There's a lot of reasons to sit there and say this price may not correct by the time we get to fall. I hope I'm wrong. I want nothing more to be wrong, but it may not happen.
Okay, let's switch over to nitrogen now. Arguably one of the most effective fertilizers from the Iran war. We're now past the 11-week mark of the strait closure, and we're starting to see some policy changes. Actually, Egypt has decided to impose a $90 export duty on nitrogen products. What does that signal to you?
That signals to me a new style of the marketplace. Before, and I'm gonna actually rerun the clock a little bit more. I'm gonna say before the India purchase tender, at least the market was kind of being held in check because it was being done by the market forces.
You're right.
When the governments start to step in, it is a whole new ballgame. It's a brand new way of looking at things. And it's exactly what we saw when India stepped into the marketplace. Now, that's a normal thing to happen. That is a normal process for them. So it wasn't completely out of bounds, but that's why you saw the high price around the world because everybody looked at that and said, hey, India's going to be paying it with government money. Why can't I get more? Well, now we have more interaction. Now the Egyptian government is sitting there trying to slow down the export of nitrogen to keep more tons at home. They've imposed a $90 per ton export duty on nitrogen products.
Right.
This is another step by the governments around the world to start stepping in to do what they see as fixing the marketplace, not allowing the free market to do what it naturally needs to do. Government interaction typically makes things more complicated and worse off for the buyer out there. So now it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, right? They did it at a very, very bad time. They imposed this duty as the market is starting to slow down from a demand standpoint. So from an Egyptian exporter point of view, if the world's sitting there saying, I don't need product right now, I don't need to buy anything, I'm not desperate, that $90 a ton duty will likely be paid by the manufacturer in the form of a lower netback.
Right.
Because the world's going to sit there and say, if I don't need it, I'm not going to pay you and the market plus 90 in order to get your product. It's not special. It's 46%. It doesn't matter whose production plan it comes from. If they had done it during the middle of the season, the world was desperate for product. They could have sat there and said, listen, you're $90 a ton over the rest of the marketplace because of this duty, but I've got no choice. I've got to pay it. So all of a sudden that manufacturer can push it on to them. So
Of course.
how this duty is going to play out is going to depend very, very widely on the marketplace at every given time throughout the year. Who is the more pressure? Is it the buyer or is it the seller?
I'm actually surprised that it took them this long to put this sort of charge on it. Speaking of low demand, are we heading for a particularly slow summer in terms of buying activity?
Slow may not be a strong enough statement for what I think we're going to see this summer. Now, I think that when you look at things like potash, we still think that's well valued versus grain prices, and I think that that's going to be something that actually trades. I think it's something that moves. And hydrous, I think domestic manufacturers will need to move that product, so they'll make the price at a point at which people will go ahead and step up and start buying stuff for summer fill for fall prepay. When we look at phosphate, we look at UAN, we look at urea. This could be the slowest period of time from a demand supply standpoint
Right.
that we've ever seen. From the supply standpoint, the manufacturers, the distributors are going to sit there and give you all the reasons in the world why prices need to be high. And every single reason that they are going to give is going to be absolutely correct. They're not making anything up. They're not sensationalizing.
Yeah.
They're just saying it as it is. And the buyers in the world are going to sit there and look at the price and say, I can't justify that. There's too much price risk. The farmers aren't buying. They're going to give all the reasons why not to buy, and they will be absolutely justified on why to not do anything. And that creates a massive stalemate, right? So the rock versus the hard place.
So then how long can buyers realistically stay on the sidelines at these levels?
That's the interesting thing. It depends on where you're talking about around the world. There are going to be some places like in the US, we've got wheat that's coming up, and you would think, okay, that's going to be a pressure point for the buyer. They have to buy for that.
Yeah.
You look across a lot of the wheat country in the US, very, very bad drought conditions, very poor crops. And the farmers are not doing well. They may sit there and say, listen, I want to plant the seed. I just won't fertilize. If the market improves, I'll fertilize after the fact, but I'm not going on pre planting because it just doesn't make any sense. And that's what I think you're going to see around the world. I think you're going to see a lot of people say that even if today is a day when I usually buy, I'm still not going to because I can't justify these numbers. If I'm not going to make money, what's the point of the investment?
Understood. That makes sense. Josh, thank you again. Always great insights. And thank you to our viewers for watching. For more financial content, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel.